procedure is now.
All right, David, here we go. Change of zoning, public hearing, master plan, preliminary development plan for Adventist Health Systems.
Good evening for the second time.
Good evening.
I'm David Moon, Planning Manager with the Community Development Department. The case before you will be discussed in three parts, and it's staff's recommendation that we give one presentation. From that presentation, the Planning Commission will make three recommendations to the City Council. One would be on the zoning of PUD. The second is on the master site plan and the transportation infrastructure agreement. And then the third would be the preliminary development plan. Jay, our Community Development Director, will give the presentation of the preliminary development plan and the transportation infrastructure agreement. I'll address the rezoning and the master site plan. The case before you is the Adventist Health Systems replacement hospital. The proposed site is located on south side of Harmon Road, west of Apopka Road, and east of State Road 429. The site is currently vacant. The future land use assigned to the property is mixed use. The current zoning assigned to the property is County A1, and the request is to assign a city zoning category of planned unit development. As part of the PUD requirements set forth in the Land Development Code, a master plan is to accompany that rezoning application, and that is presented before you in your package. The proposed replacement hospital, we don't define as a new hospital. It's really a modernized hospital. The current site on Park Avenue, from its medical use, is considered to be outdated. There are new federal and state requirements that the hospitals have to meet today. One of those examples explained by the hospital is all patients now must be in their own room. So the hospital is designed for that type of accommodation. The hospital representatives are here so they can explain to you if you have questions related to the hospital's potential use. As I mentioned, the proposed zoning is planned unit development. The current future land use is mixed use. The proposed density and intensity of the hospital is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Its floor area ratio does not exceed 0.25. Under a planned unit development zoning, the applicant has the opportunity to ask for deviations from the current Land Development Code. One of the most significant deviations is the height of the building. The Land Development Code restricts the building height to 35 feet. The applicant, Adventist Health Systems, requests a maximum height of 160 feet and maximum number of stories of 7 stories. The general character of the area, as I proceeded to the maps, is planned for higher density and intensity of uses. Most of the zoning and land use in the surrounding area is assigned a mixed use land use category and a mixed EC zoning category. There's also lands that are assigned industrial and commercial in the predominant area surrounding the hospital. The city's vision for that area is to have an employment-oriented environment. It's to create jobs. And that's what the hospital does. It creates jobs for that area. And from the start of this project to now, the excitement about future growth and development in that area has blossomed. Other property owners have talked to me about obtaining design firms to start planning their property to fulfill this concept for that area. So based on the DRC review, the proposed uses not only compatible with the comprehensive plan and the land development code, but with the recent Ocoee Apopka Road Small Area Study. It's compatible with the vision that has been presented to both the Planning Commission, City Council, and the various community meetings that have been held. Regarding transportation, you'll hear more of that from Jay Duvall. A transportation study was performed because of the traffic impacts that affect the area roads. There are a significant number of off-site road improvements and abutting pedestrian bicycle improvements that are necessary to handle the traffic that will be generated by the hospital. To accommodate that traffic, a special agreement is in place. Part of the reason is because those improvements are off-site, and there's also some phasing involved with the project. So a transportation infrastructure agreement is in place that outlines the traffic improvements that are necessary to accommodate that traffic generated by the hospital. Regarding the master site plan, the hospital is proposed to be phased. The initial phase will be up to 80 beds with the potential to expand it in the future to 200 beds. The square footage of the hospital, maximum square footage is 600,000 square feet, and the maximum number of medical office buildings, square footage of that would be 200,000 square feet. So there's additional square footage that is planned in the future from the first phase. But in general, the overall plan from Ocoee, Apopka Road, is to have a loop system surrounding the hospital. There are requirements to allow for potential connection to the south, so this roadway could connect to either as a public or a private road. The development that occurs southward all the way down towards the interchange area to help alleviate traffic on Ocoee Apopka Road and make this more of a walkable community. Around the hospital will be the parking lots. Within the parking lots, there's the designated spaces for motorcycle parking. There's a few spaces that will accommodate electric hookup for electric cars. And there's special access for emergency vehicles to the rear to reach the emergency room. There's also a helipad for a helicopter. There's designated flight paths that follow a southwest to northeast approach, northeast to or northwest departure from the helipad site. Now, questions have been raised at community meetings on the small area study about the helicopters as well as the ambulances that will be generated by the hospital. The helicopter likely is only going to occur once or twice a week from information provided by the hospital. The ambulances to the hospital only occurring a few times a day. It's not as though there's going to be 20 or 30 helicopters flying into the hospital site every day, and similar, there aren't going to be 100 ambulances running up and down Ocoee Apopka Road, based on their past experience with other hospitals. In particular, in their evaluation of their impacts, they took in consideration Altamont Hospital, which is a larger facility than what is proposed, and it has, they looked at the ambulance traffic coming in and out of the Altamont Hospital. On the north side of the hospital will be an 11-foot wide bicycle trail to connect westward on Harmon Road to a bicycle system there. On the west side, running along Ocoee Apopka Road, will be an 11-foot trail that will continue to connect to other trails as we implement the small area study and as other properties develop in the surrounding area. There's a bus station, a transit facility posed here at the eastern side of the property along Apopka Road. One of the state requirements for for their certificate of need was a long-term planning for a connection to a bus line. There's a bus line there now, but at the time that Lynx would request a bus service or proposed bus service, the hospital required to install a transit facility here, a transit shelter that will have connection to the sidewalks leading into the hospital. There's also, in terms of the pedestrian system, walkways proposed to the south so it can connect to other properties owned by the hospital, or a pedestrian system that could connect to other commercial or office development to the south, or perhaps residential development, depending on what is proposed. So, in summary, the proposed hospital campus, the PUD and master site plan are compatible with the comprehensive plan and the land development code. Should be a positive attribute to the Apopka community. The Development Review Committee met and reviewed this over the past several months, as well as involved in the small area study. They find the plan to be consistent and compatible with the comprehensive plan, land development code, and compatible with the character of the surrounding area. So that concludes my presentation.
Jay's about to push you out of the way.
Continuing on, I will present about the preliminary development plan and the transportation information. Some David summarized. You know the site, which has already been mentioned. Phase 1 is 80 beds and up to 400,000 square feet. The site plan I have in front of you for several reasons. They have 3 access points, 2 along Harmon Road, and the main entrance will be right here along Apopka Road. It's evenly spaced between Harmon Road, which is up here, and this little road here is Emerson Parks Road that comes out and connects down here just off the map. So it's evenly spaced that way. The stormwater preliminary has been designed with stormwater ponds that meet our City of Apopka criteria. There are buffers along Apopka Road of 13 feet, Harmon Road 11 feet, and State Road 429 of 15 feet. The preliminary plan does show 840 spaces that are provided. 59 are handicapped, 10 are designated as motorcycle, and as David mentioned, 2 are electric car charging stations. The 2 entrances off of the Harmon Road, this will be the main entrance for emergency and others. The emergency room will be located on this side of the hospital. This will be the main entrance. This driveway here is configured for deliveries only. They have a central delivery area in this location. And for truck turning radiuses, they come in and are able to get there. They will not be mixing with the vehicles coming to this one. It will be a 3-lane section through there. David mentioned the Lynx bus stop. The elevations, I'll come to it real quick for you to see it, but it's in your package. The hospital worked with us very much on coming up with a unique design for this area, bringing the old and the new together, and they may want to speak to that, but we think they did a very good job in working with us to create a hospital that will look very unique in this area for the city. And then to go over the traffic information that's in your package, there's the main points I'd like to point out mostly start on page 3 of that document. There are some items identified starting on page 3 that are what we consider must-dos for the hospital, and then as you get to page 4 of the document under section B, there are those that the city and the hospital will determine prior to the final development plan whether they will undertake it or not. Just a little bit of the way it works. As David mentioned, a traffic study was performed. They analyzed their total build-out traffic on the area roadways, and then from that, the report determined which roads might fail, which intersections might fail, which improvements would definitely be needed because of their development. And then there was some improvements that they're contributing some traffic to, but the improvements not needed now because of their hospital. But we all know in the future they probably will be needed, so they are willing to pay their proportionate fair share to those projects. And some of them may be ones they want to entertain in phase one, and the city and them will agree whether we both agree that that's what we want to do. But in the first section, there was one added over what you actually have in there, and I apologize for that. As you know, we have to get these on the computer earlier sometimes, and we actually have all the information together, and I'll go over that in a moment. Item 3A1 is the improvement. The A1 and A2 are improvements to Harmon Road. Just off the screen here, going over to Binion Road, over this way, they will be improving that road to 2-lane standards with 4-foot shoulders. They will be improving this section in here from Apopka Road to where the Expressway Authority picked up to a 3-lane standard with the center turn lane. They will be, and these are the improvements that they will be doing totally on their own. The dollar amount you see is approximately what they will be spending on it, but this is what they have to do for their phase one improvements. They will be adding a southbound right turn lane extension here at the entrance in order to accommodate vehicles coming in. They'll also be adding this center left turn lane for their entrance for the northbound vehicles. The one that's not on your paper in this section is on my paper, which is item number 5, which is off the screen down here at Keene Road and Apopka Road. They will be impacting that, and they will be putting up a traffic signal. Now, the negotiation we've done with that on the possibility route is at some point in time with the small area study, Apopka Road may need to be widened in the future. That widening would be in the future, so to try to put a traffic signal up now for their improvement at the 4-lane, so you can't do it. So we've worked out with them that to correct their situation for their project, they would put a strain pole traffic signal up at the current location, which will accommodate the capacity that they need to correct the issue that they're having. And that's what this item number 5 is. It is not on your paper. As mentioned, the Lynx bus stop would be added at such time as a Lynx route is needed or provided by Lynx. Currently, there is not a route down there, but when it's provided, they will provide a shelter that would be compatible with the hospital design. They will also be, as David mentioned, adding these bikeways, shared paths along Apopka Road and along Harmon Road as their must-do projects.
Are they, David said 11 feet, this says 10 feet, are they 10 feet or 11 feet?
They are 11 feet.
Okay, so
that was, yes,
that was a recent change based on...
Mine I'm looking at, unfortunately, says 11.
Okay, I just want to make sure y'all got it, whatever you're agreeing to.
Like I said, unfortunately, it changed since we had to put it on the computer, and it is 11 feet. Now, there are some other things that may come up, as I mentioned, prior to final development plan. As part of the small area study, some of you may know, there's been a roundabout possibly proposed right here at Harmon Road and Apopka Road. They would be willing to participate in that roundabout if the city and Florida Hospital make that determination. They would also, if that determination is not made that that's what we all want, because the small area study hasn't been completed yet, if they would be willing to participate in a mast arm traffic signal at that location. So items 1 and 2 in section B, that's what they reference. Part of item number 3 is they would help participate in the designing of the road to 4-lane standards from the ending of here at Emerson Park where the 4-lane ends south to 429. So the city could, in the future, use that design to help the property owners that would be coming in later to see what's needed for that improvement. They'd be willing to participate in that. Also, there's a possibility of looking at adding a 5-foot shoulder, possibly in that section, to see if from the Emerson Park south to the 429, which is item number 4. And then they would also be willing to participate, if the city and Florida Hospital agree, to help part of the funding of the intersection of the mast arm intersection at McCoy, Apopka Road and Boy Scout Road. These all would be discussed prior to the final development plan, which will be between now and February of next year. So, I mean, these will come fairly quick, but we wanted to have them into the agreement. That's the bulk of the agreement you have there. And with that, the Development Review Committee does recommend approval of the preliminary development plan and the transportation improvement development agreement.
Jay, those dollar amounts that are listed there for the future stuff, those are the total cost, not their cost, right?
It's the total cost, of which on the section B, we would do a proportionate fair share, which means that the way it kind of works is they will have to be paying impact fees to the city for their building. If the city wants to, let's say, do the roundabout, they would participate to their proportionate fair share, but because they would probably be willing to build it with the phase 1, it would cost upwards of what it might say there, $750,000, of which they would pay a portion of that. Okay. They would build it, and then they would get impact fee credits for the remaining portion.
Okay. All right.
So just in a scenario,
I just didn't understand whether that 750 was their 11% share, or that's just the total
that would be a approximate cost.
Okay. And they pay 11%.
And then they would pay, whatever the proportionate fair share is.
Right. Okay. Got it. All right, anybody else have any questions of Jay? I don't know if you're, I just, on the design of the building, what you showed in the sketch, that's not what's going in there right now. That's the overall plan, or is that what's going to be built right now?
They may address that in a moment. My understanding is they're going to build the 7 stories and have the top couple of shells for later.
Okay.
And not build them out, but they can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
All right, got it. Anybody else have any questions of Jay or staff? All right, y'all have a presentation?
We've narrowed down to 90 minutes.
Turn the lights out when you leave.
When's dinner being delivered? Well, good evening.
I do apologize to all of y'all for having to wait an hour and 15 minutes. We apologize, but it just could not be avoided. Sorry.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm Jennifer Wanderslaben, Vice President and Administrator at Florida Hospital Apopka, and I'm grateful to have my team here with me tonight. I won't introduce each of them, but I do want to introduce Bourne Owen. He's our legal consultant with Florida Hospital. And before I get into my comments, I wanted to address the elevation.
Before you go much further,
Sure.
Give us your address, please.
Oh my goodness, 201 North Park Avenue.
Thank
Threw
you.
me.
All right.
Our plan, we have 2 phases in this plan as far as the elevations, and phase 1 is a 5-story. But we haven't decided if we're going to come out the ground with 5 stories or 7. So 7 would be the master. So it will be either 5 or 7. And as before we break ground in the spring, we would come back and have that our final or our recommendation for that. I want to thank you also to the city staff who have worked diligently on this project with us, and we appreciate their input and collaboration, and we believe that we have a better project here because of their assistance. And we're also grateful that we've had the opportunity to meet some of our neighbors at 2 public meetings that we held in July and in September. And we've been grateful for that opportunity. And in 1967, the Apopka community celebrated the open house and the dedication of North Orange Memorial Hospital. And it was a tax district hospital, and it had 50 beds. And in the mid-'70s, the tax district's board thought about having a management company take over the hospital and engaged in conversations with Florida Hospital. And those discussions didn't end in a management agreement, but it actually ended in the outright purchase of the hospital. And so in 1975, the North Orange Memorial Hospital transitioned, along with its 44 staff members and 1 patient, to Florida Hospital, Apopka. And so for nearly 40 years, Florida Hospital has served the citizens here of Apopka, thousands of community members. And yesterday, I had the opportunity of having new employee orientation. I had about 20 caregivers in the room, and I asked them, I said, did you wake up this morning excited to come to the hospital and start maybe 10 IVs, or pass out 35 lunch trays, or maybe take 50 x-rays? And nobody raised their hand. And it's because they're not excited about the tasks. It's because they're caregivers, because they have a higher calling. And their higher calling aligns with our mission at the hospital, which is to extend the healing ministry of Christ. And we believe with this project, we're going to be able to serve that mission for thousands more here in the community for many more years to come. So tonight, again, I thank you for the time this evening. And we fully support the staff's report and conditions as presented, and we ask you to recommend our project to City Council. And then also, there may be a few members of the public present tonight, and I'd like to reserve a few minutes at the conclusion of their comments to respond to any of their questions or concerns.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before you leave, does the commission have any questions of Jennifer?
I just have comments. Go ahead.
I just have one question. Again, it's the beds. You're talking about 80 beds to 200 beds. And from reading what I've read, as I understand it, the tower is going to house the patients. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so I'm just curious how you're going to go. I think we sort of addressed it a little bit. How you're going to go from 80 beds to 200 beds.
As far as the floors, I can answer. Do you want to answer that for me? Well, the ground floor is support services like materials management, conference rooms, and so forth. The first floor is surgical services. I'm looking at Matt. Surgical services and like radiology services and the emergency department. And then, and that's when I say second floor, that's throughout the hospital. The tower. And that's the ground floor and the first floor, and then the second floor starts the tower side, and that's where we'd have 40-bed pods. So the second floor and the third floor, am I getting that right? Okay.
All right.
The first, okay, I'm going to have Bourne finish answering this question. Excuse me.
Good evening, Warren Owen, happy to be here, 301 East Pine Street, Orlando.
Thank you.
The way we build our hospitals, and thank you for your question, is the first 2 floors are hospital support, all the things that are necessary to support a hospital from an administrative standpoint. We've determined through our experience that the best floor plate for a hospital services 40 beds. That provides sufficient function for nurses' stations, the right equipment, all the things that we can have on one particular floor. If we go to the full 7 stories, we'll have the 2 floors that I mentioned to you, which are the hospital support, then 5 floors of 40 beds each. However, we won't occupy all 5 floors at one time. Our first phase is only 80 beds. So we could occupy 40, then 40, which would be floors 3 and 4. The top floors, the 3 floors would be for another 120 beds. We would build them out at the appropriate time, as the needs of the community were required for those beds. We're still trying to decide how tall to make it. We're asking you for 7 floors tonight. As Jennifer mentioned, we may just go 5. Our goal is to address the needs of the city of Apopka and the residents of the city of Apopka. And once we determine what that is, working with your staff, then we'll decide how tall the building should be. But does that answer your question?
So the shell will be there. You'll just fill it out as required.
Yes. Our experience is such is that while we can stress a building to handle more floors at the top, it's so intrusive to try to add floors to the top of a hospital, we'd rather not do that. But does that answer your
Yes,
question?
thank you.
Mallory, you have a question?
I just have a comment.
Yes.
I'm going to miss the helicopter flying over my house.
Oh.
Not. And I truly, we used to live on the property where the current hospital is, and I'm hoping, and I don't know whether you're ready to address it, what the future plans are for that property, whether you will sell it off, develop it, do whatever, but I'm kind of looking forward to that in the neighborhood, whatever it is.
Thank you for your comment. I believe that you share the same sentiment that a lot of my employees and physicians and community, I hear that a lot. Our plan is that when we move out in 2017, our goal is that we know exactly what happens with that property. And so backing up a few years to today, we want to make sure we take all the right time to sort and vet the ideas. So as of today, we have 2 consultants that we have contracted with to help us look at what could happen there at that property with 3 design drivers in mind. And that is that it's an economic impact to the city of Apopka, that it's the highest and best use of the land, and that it complements the current Adventist assets that are there, such as the nursing home and the church.
Thank you.
Any other? Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, we'll open up for public hearing. Anybody in the audience want to speak? Have any questions? For, against? All right, then I'll close the public hearing, and we'll make recommendations on this. I just want to thank your team, your whole team, and Florida Hospital in general, for working with the staff in this whole development area that we're looking at and making it a walkability area. I think that's important, and that you're willing to help with the cost of a roundabout as opposed to traffic lights or stop signs. I think that's just great. And from the comments I've heard from the public, that's what they're looking for, and y'all are willing to help with that, so I appreciate it very much. All right, we have to make 3 recommendations to City Council. First is on the PUD, and the DRC recommends approval of that, and I haven't heard anything tonight that would cause us not to want to do that. So we need a motion to recommend a change of zoning from County A1 to City PUD, with all the things that David outlined.
I'd make that motion.
There's a motion by Jim Green. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Melvin. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries. The second item is the PUD master plan, including the architectural renderings as Jay presented. Is there a motion that we recommend approval of the PUD master plan?
So moved.
There's a motion, Terry, and a second.
Second?
Second by Pam. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries as well. And last is the transportation infrastructure agreement that Jay went over. With the new numbers that Jay, or the new items that Jay included in his, that's not in our package that he described. So is there a motion that we recommend approval of the transportation infrastructure agreement?
So moved.
Motion by Melvin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by, what's your name?
Trouble.
Mallory.
Chair, we also need a motion on the preliminary development plan.
We
That's
just did
separate from the
that.
master site plan.
Okay, we did a change of zoning, the PUD master plan.
Correct?
You said 3. Now you're up to 4?
Well,
The preliminary, the transportation and the preliminary kind of,
They're together? The preliminary development plan and the,
we have a separate agenda item just addressing the
okay, all right, I'll get there.
development plan.
I'll get there.
We would
All right,
like
we have a motion to
action on
to
that.
recommend approval of the transportation infrastructure agreement. Is there a second? There was a second by Mallory. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Now we go.
And that motion carries, and then we have another item in our package. As soon as I can get through all of this.
Page 40.
Page 42.
Yeah, and the recommendations.
All right, the recommend approval of the Florida Hospital Replacement Campus Preliminary Development Plan, Phase 1, subject to the findings of the staff report as presented. Is there a motion that we make that recommendation?
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Terry. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries as well. We got everything y'all need? All righty. Any other business, old business, new business to come before us? Then we'll be adjourned. And again, I apologize for the delay.